Alright, so this is a continuation. In this video I'm going to try and go through web applications, servlets, and Tomcat. In particular, we're going to be looking at how do we prepare a study for the topic web applications. So you're going to want to know what is a web application. So what is a WAR file? What does a WAR file consist of? In particular, is it a zip file? Okay, so some questions that you can ask yourself. What is inside of the actual WAR file if you expand it? Okay, so you have compiled class files, Java pages, the different. You can have your web.xml file that's going to be in your web inf directory. You're going to have your meta inf directory, your manifest, and if there's other libraries, those things are going to come in underneath webinf/lib. Okay, so the web archive or WAR file is going to be basically a self-contained web application file that can be deployed onto a J2EE compliant web container. Okay? So that's going to be the kind of area that you want to spend some time studying on and figuring out, well, how does this thing exactly work? So you plug it into a web container, the container expands the archive, and the executable binary code is loaded up by the container and run. Okay? So that's the area for that. As it pertains to the topic of servlets, you're going to want to be this is a sort of more practical topic, so you want to spend a little bit more time looking at the more practical side of it. So, how is a servlet initialized? What methods are invoked? For example, do get or do post. When are those methods invoked? You're going to want to look at all the different objects that are sort of in the ecosystem that servlets live in. So, HTTP servlet, HTTP servlet response, HTTP servlet request. You're going to want to spend some time looking at cookies. You're going to want to spend some time looking at things like session objects. Okay, but from a very practical perspective. So, what are some of the methods on those objects? What are the object names? Okay, so maybe that finer detail is where perhaps you want to spend some time as it pertains to your study time when you're looking at servlets. I think that it would be advantageous for you to review some of the servlets that we've covered in class, look at some of the implementations. You know, there's a lot of little details there. So, how do you set up an initialization parameter inside of a web application? So, how does a servlet read those parameters from the web.xml file? You want to answer and be clear about what's going on in there. Okay. The last part of what we will talk to in this video, I think you want to ask yourself the question: how do I start or stop Tomcat? This is important. In the real world, you're not going to be. Most web applications are not run from the programmer's IDE. They're run on a standalone container. So you need to be familiar with the different components and parts of the container. In particular, things like the webapps directory. Okay, where do log files go? Where do the binaries go? How do you start and stop the Tomcat? Okay, what about third-party libraries? Where would you put those? Okay. In addition, what about configuring the Tomcat container to do the job that you want it to do? So you're going to want to spend time looking at server.xml. You're going to want to look at the global web.xml file and any other sort of specific information that pertains to the architecture of the container. Okay. What about web application context? So these are going to be some questions that if you're not sure about, you probably want to review so that when the time comes that you do the midterm, you've got everything set out and It's a matter of just answering the questions. Okay? So that's it for this part.